Start.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Um, Hi. So my name is Jacques. I'm one of the co-author of the ERC 777 token standard with Jodi. What? Okay. Sorry. Hi. Let's start again. My name is Jacques. I'm one of the co-author with Jordi and Tom, who is hiding somewhere, of the new ERC 777 token standard. Okay, so ERC 20, I'm sure you all know it. It's the de facto standard for tokens on the Ethereum blockchain today. We have over 500 valued tokens, different tokens, and that's over $25 billion cumulative market cap. So it's a really big thing. But there is some problem with it. Mostly the contracts are not aware when they receive tokens via transfer. And there's this two transaction mechanism with approve and then transfer from the receiving contract to get the tokens. And this thing resulted in many tokens being locked. So lots of people lost their money that way. There is some other issue with race condition in the allowance. And there is no possibility when you do your contract to actually attach data to transactions. And you also don't have controls of the tokens you received. It's not possible for you to actually reject tokens, you just receive them. And to fix all of this, we have ERC 20. One of the key goals behind that is to actually have a very similar send method to the Ether send transaction method. So we have a to, an amount, and then we have some data you can attach there. So you are able to attach variable length data to your transactions. And another difference is, thanks to this different name, you don't confuse the send of 777 on the transfer of ERC20. So you know actually what standard you're using and which method you're using that way. We have a very cool function in their functionality, which is operators. The idea behind an operator is to be a trusted third party. That usually is meant to be a smart contract, not a regular address. And this operator can move your funds on your behalf. So there is this special operator send method, which looks just like a send with the extra option to specify the from address where the tokens come from, which balance to take the tokens from, and another data field for the operator to also attach data relevant to him. And anyone can authorize or revoke an operator for their own account. And some token contract, depending on your use case, is also able to pre-authorize some specific trusted operator for your universe or your ecosystem of tokens. Examples, a very simple, basic example is this cold wallet to hot wallet transfer. So you can have your hot wallet on your phone. You can transfer, you want to transfer token from your cold wallet without carrying the key of your cold wallet on you all the time. So you define an operator, you register a third address from your cold wallet with this register dispatcher, and then you can just, with this extra key, called refill account, and this will take the money out of your cold wallet, but you will only send it to your hot wallet. This can only send it to one address. So if you get this dispatcher stolen, the attacker can only send you money, essentially. And there is, it's a bit, okay, it's got on the screen, okay. There's many more examples. You can have a check processor, you can have a relayer contract to pay gas, you can have some subscription manager, you can build an exchange, you have financial services, and many other case payment channels where you have this operator with a code that you review, so it's something that's trusted, and that will basically send funds for you. Another cool feature, and I guess that's what Fabian was talking before, is we have hooks. So you can be notified when you receive tokens. And so basically you register a tokens recipient, and every time you receive tokens to an address, this method is called. And you can register this also for a regular account. So you deploy your contract, and every time you receive money on your regular account, this contract is called with tokens received, and you can take actions. For contracts, we actually require you to register one, and this prevents locking. So you deploy your contract, and you register the contract itself for another one with tokens received to handle the reception of tokens, and this will prevent this big lock of token and help Fabian. Another hook we have is when you send tokens. So before the tokens are taken from your balance, you can also do some login, or you can do some limitation, quota limitation, with a hook that happens before you send with tokens to send. Now let Jodi explain you how that works.
Yeah, for registering these interfaces, so you have a regular account and you want, for example, to prevent receiving tokens, or you want, for example, that when you receive tokens, maybe you send 10% of those tokens to other account for donations, for example, or for for some interest that you have to pay somebody else. You have to register that hooks in some way. So the solution here is a very innovative solution. That's what we call an ownerless trusted contract. So mainly it's a kind of, I don't like the word centralized because it's centralized, but it's a smart contract which is decentralized by itself. It's a smart contract that's seated in the blockchain, and it acts like a global database where everybody can send registers according to their own address. So, for example, I can register in this database that whenever somebody sends me tokens, please call this function in that smart contract and do the actions that are seated in there. And this centralized, this ownerless database, trustless contract. The way we deploy it in ERC 820 is a very interesting way to do it, because the way to do it is it's a way that we guarantee that this contract is going to have the same address in any chain that's deployed, and nobody can put a different contract on that. The way to do that is we generated a normal transaction to deploy the contract. We change the signature and we put a known number, for example, all A's in the signature. We recover which was this, which was the account that signed it, but it's an account that we don't have the private key of that account, because we just know the signature of that, we recover that, but we don't know the private key. So we have a public key that's known, but it's a private key that's not known. And then what we do is we just transfer Ether to that account and then broadcast that transaction so that the contract is deployed, and it's like that it's going to have this specific address, and we can do that in any of the networks. So we know that this address, we know that this contract with that specific bytecode is going to be deployed. So I think it's an interesting and it's a cool idea, and this is 820 is going to be probably one of the first, if not the first, that's going to use this technique, but it's very useful for deploying generic decentralized contract, and we expect that this is going to be used in many places else. Here, a lot of credit goes to Nick Johnson. He's the inventor of this, so just to mention that. And yeah, that's more or less how. Where do I have the clicker? Oh, I have in the pocket. Yeah, sorry. Oh, down. Okay. Okay. Another feature that's very important to mention, because that's one of the main goals of this standard, is to be backwards compatible with ERC 20. So you can create a token that's ERC 20 compatible. It works with all the interfaces. It works with EtherScan. It works with legacy smart contracts. It still works. So you can define transfer from, approve. You can define all those functions, and it will work. The only difference is that the hooks, if you define hooks on that, those hooks will have precedence over the transfers. So that you have the warranty that any time that a token leaves, wherever is the mechanism that's leaving, even in a legacy ERC20 transfer, either via an operator, either because you are sending that directly, whatever way that the tokens are leaving your tokens, or whatever way tokens are arriving to your address, you have always, so your function is, your hook is going to be called whatever happened. So, for example, one interesting thing on that is that you can even prevent, you can continue prevent, for example, to receiving tokens. I can, for example, block receiving airdrops if I want, or I can do, because this is important. We define in this standard that you have the full ownership of your account. And when I say you have the full ownership, means that you have the power of sending any tokens whenever you want, but also to receiving any tokens whenever you want. That's the difference, that because you are owning your own account. One of the issues on that is that when you are of course, if you are using transfer, you can still continue transfer tokens to legacy contracts, okay? But for one of the problems that this could have, but if you're using send, by default, you are not able to send tokens to a contract. This is to prevent locking tokens, because we have seen that there is a lot of people that's trying to send tokens to a contract, and those contract is not prepared for receiving tokens, so they get locked in that contract. So when you are using send, tokens will not be able to receive tokens unless the contracts are prepared to receive tokens. One of the issues that have this is, for example, multisigs. Multisigs at the end are contracts, so by default, when you are trying to send tokens to a multisig with this standard, will not work. So the way to do it is either you use transfer when you want to send to multisig, which is the legacy and is not the recommended way to do it, or the multisig can just register, and this is an operation that's going to be, that will have to be done only once in the life. Just register that multisig with a standard contract that allows always to receive any contract. So that's the two options. Now, of course, there is a third option that's just upgrade a multisig. But an old multisig or a proxy contract, for example, a UPOR proxy contract, can create this transaction just to approve, just to add this recipient hook to accept any tokens on that. So that's the compromise of solving this security issue with the ERC20 standard. Okay. And oh yeah, I missed this. Okay, yeah, there is another detail. It's a small detail that we also fixed in this contract, is about decimals. There was a lot of confusions with a lot of tokens that they had. Some of them had 1 decimal, some of them had 0 decimals, some of them had 18 decimals, some of them had 8 decimals. There was a big issue on that. It was difficult for the user, knowing, difficult to construct, you know, and there was a lot of mistakes because the decimals were not in the right place. So here we split two concepts that are very different one each other. One things are the decimal, and the other is the granularity. The decimals is in euro, it would be, for example, 2 decimals. In Bitcoin would be, I think it's 8 decimals. And in Ethereum would be 18 decimals. That's one concept. And the other concept is the minimum indivisible amount that can be transferred together. Okay, so this is the granularity. So the compromise that we made is, okay, in this token we fix that the decimals is going to be always 18, which is very much a standard in a lot of tokens, and the one that's used in Ethereum. And then you define another field that you can define it, that's going to be the granularity. Okay, and the granularity, for example, in Ethereum is one way, so it's 1. You can split whatever you want. Euro would be 10 to the 16, so these 2 decimals. 10 to the 18 would be 1 euro, 10 to the 16 would be 1 cent. Okay, if you have something that's not divisible, like I don't know, a poker chip or just an egg or whatever, it's going to be 10 to the 18. That's the minimum divisible part. Or Bitcoin would be 10 to the 8, so it's 8 decimals. So that would the 10 to the 10. So you have 8 decimals. So that would be the example. And this, I think, it's much more clear. It's much more flexible because you have this granularity, and it's much more easy for the end user to just know that this is 18 decimals. Okay, so just to summarize a little bit, yeah, we see that this smart contract, this token standard solve many, if not all, of the issues that we have in ERC 20. It's still backwards compatible, so it's very easy for new tokens implementation to start using that. We guarantee that they are still compatible with ERC 20, and you can use all the new functionalities that these standards provides. The way to work with transfers is very much the same way that the Ether by itself works, with this send and attaching data to that. So this makes a lot of sense of how the ecosystem will work on that. And we have a bunch of extensions mechanism. This is just like the base, the beginning, but there is all these extensions mechanism that can allow a new ecosystem around the tokens. We have the user data, user operator, this data that you can add to any transfer that's done. This data can be added, of course, from the user, but can also, the operator has also the choice to add more data to that. For example, I don't know, a payment reference or an authorization ID or whatever. We have this, of course, the operators by itself. We plan, for example, Jacques already told some of them, but for example, a check processor. It's just if you want to emit a check of tokens, and you want to send that check to somebody else, you can have like a check processor that can be activated for the users as a normal operator. Okay, so that's and could be, for example, a check standard, or could be, for example, a smart contract that do regular payments, where you can register. For example, I'm subscribed to this magazine, so please allow this operator to make a payment every month and things like that. So that's very, very useful. There can be a lot of standards on that, and can be a lot of extensions on that. Of course, the hooks. Adding these hooks there is also a lot of choices and a lot of extensibility on that, and we believe that this is going to be like the base for many new applications that will start using this extension functionality of the standard. Of course, we have this decimals granularity stuff, which is just a simple fix on that. And just mention that, well, right now we are very happy in how this standard works, of the acceptance on the community of this standard. We have a very, very, very good acceptance. Right now there is very much a good consensus on this standard. So we expect that this is going to be ready very, 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 very early, almost if not now. The current state, just want to mention the current state. We are still discussing which ownerless registry we are going to use. Here in this presentation, we talk about A20. There is by now a proposal to use the 780, which is the same concept that A20, but instead of talking about interfaces, it's just a generic database for claims. Okay, so anybody can claim, and you can put in that, you can register those claims in this centralized and trusted database. We probably it's not decided yet, but we probably are going to discard this option because there are some security concerns, especially when you're working with interfaces. There is some well, there is, if somebody have interest, they can join the discussion and we can explain why this is not feasible with 780, but it's still something that's open and we are still discussing on that. So the idea is that when everything is ready on this, we will deploy the 820, which is just doing this mechanism, and everybody can do it. I will do it if nobody is doing, but I will do it. We are still working in a reference implementation on that. The reference implementation is almost done, but we are still doing more tests. We want to do some audits on that and some code reviews. We need to do some coverage on that. So that's work in progress, but it's almost done. And then when that's done, it's more or less approved. We'll see the first ICOs. Right now, as Fabian mentioned, they are going to use it in his refundable ICO, which I think it's a cool idea, and it's a good example to start using this standard. For us, it's an honor that the person that made the ERC20 is using the ERC 777. It's like something that makes proud, and it's like this. It shows very much the consensus that there is in the community to use this standard. As interesting things, for example, there is also a formal verification. So any token that's that implements this standard can be checked if it fulfills this standard. This is already done in ERC20, and there's people working on that. And the guy that did in the ERC20 is going to do it also in the ERC 777. So that's this is our new improvements on that. And of course, these new standards that will follow this standard on that. So that's mainly the main route of the ERC20. So now it's time to open for any questions. Yeah, it's the first, well, the last, just by one. The last question is for the legacy contracts, if there is a way to upgrade. The answer is no. Smart contracts by definition are not upgradable unless you prevent that to be upgradable. But that's